Hey guys, I'm Mark Allen, BHSpringSolutions LLC, BHSpringSolutions.com, and we are at one of the points in High Power University that I have really been looking forward to getting to this part, and with a lot of enthusiasm, and it's about the subject of the high power barrel, and FN. Redesigned the high power barrel actually multiple times throughout the history of the high power pistol. Other manufacturers did some things with barrels that was a little different than FN or Browning. And we have aftermarket barrels, multiple makers, Barstow. I don't know if Wilson ever made one, Cylinder and Slide, I think. And there have been many. There's another one I think now out in Pennsylvania that their barrels are being sold on Brownells, I think. And so there has been availability of high power barrels, and BH Spring Solutions has what we believe to be the most advanced and superb high power barrel that has ever been put into a high power pistol. But that's not the purpose of why I'm excited and why I'm so enthusiastic about covering this part in the upcoming session or sessions of High Power University. But it's primarily because we're going to talk about some things and share with you some things that for almost everybody watching these series is going to be some new information, some fresh information. Some of this information, ultimately, I promise, is going to be controversial for some people. So we're going to try to structure this and present it in a way so that we're not creating controversy and we're not in any way being negative about anyone else's product. We want to try to approach this with all of the objectivity that we should. And especially because, frankly, barrels are expensive, and they are an investment, and this will be more than one session, and because there is even some history here that we have to cover. But I want to start by sharing a question that has been a frequent question from high power owners to us on email and on our voicemail message line, and when folks schedule an appointment online with us for a consultation. And the question is framed like, hey, I want to get better accuracy out of my high power. What barrel should I get? And that's probably the thing that's going to seem a little controversial up front, and that is how, my question always is, how fresh are your springs? And if the answer is anything that leads me to think the springs have been in that high power for plus 10 years, my answer is always the same. The best barrel you can get for your high power is the one you have in it right now, and a BH Spring Solutions optimized spring kit. You will go farther in getting accuracy by replacing all of the springs in your high power than any barrel, frankly, you can buy. Now, there is an exception. If you have a Tissos Regent BR9, you possibly have a defective barrel in that handgun. We have encountered several. This would be the one exception where quite possibly not just springs might be the answer to better accuracy. And as I've said that, now I hope you see the objectivity here, and that is for guys looking for enhanced accuracy out of their high power pistol, we potentially, by saying this, could be unselling our own barrel to a lot of people who might be looking at our barrels and in hopes of enhanced accuracy. They may very well do that, and it's possible. However, the most stunning improvement in accuracy I ever experienced personally, and I have ever experienced personally, and countless numbers of BH veterans have experienced personally and told us so, has been fresh springs in your high power pistol. And we probably sound like some kind of preacher about fresh springs in your high power. I'm going to take you back about 30 years. I first bought my high power pistol in 1990, and the day I bought it, I had to go shoot it. So I went to a woods that is about 2 miles down the road from where I live now, and where I had squirrel hunted, so I knew I was good to go in there and shoot. So I did, and I was absolutely knocked out by the accuracy of this handgun and the reliability, the function, everything about it. I was just smitten by this. I had other handguns, and nothing compared to anything that happened that day in the woods. And the thing I remember very, very vividly is this inclination I got very quickly that I could plant a bullet anywhere I decided to plant one, whenever I decided to plant one there. And I had, targets up on trees, and this was just a moment that made an imprint on me mentally, I think, because it was a very, very different kind of experience than I had ever had before with a handgun. Okay, so the first 10,000 rounds out of my high power were absolutely function flawless, absolutely wonderful. And I never had a stoppage. I never had a malfunction in those first 10,000 rounds. Those first 10,000 rounds took the first 18 years of ownership that I had of my high power. And there was something that happened over that 18 years. I remember this also. By the time I got 18 years in terms of my high power ownership, I had acquired a couple of other handguns, and it was a little confusing to me because the accuracy that I had experienced, especially in the first several years with my high power, and well beyond the first several years, probably the first 10 years, I didn't have those kind of shooting experiences anymore. And, a lot of it, I thought it was me, and I changed my position of the trigger, and I, tried different stance, different shooting hold, everything. And nothing seemed to impress me about what I was seeing, the holes on the paper. And this went on, and, I acquired a couple of other pistols, and I realized that, wow, the accuracy of these other pistols, and they were newer, was actually better than with my high power. And at this point, I don't know anything about you ever have to even change a spring in a handgun. And so one day, my high power malfunctioned, and this was about 18 years and about 10,000 rounds in. I had never had a malfunction before, and I was out shooting that day, and I had lots of malfunctions repeatedly, and I figured out that I wasn't getting out the empty shell casing out of the handgun, and it wasn't leaving. And so I started looking on the internet, and I found Stephen Camp, and Stephen Camp was still alive at this time. This would be about 2008, and I started reading a lot of his material. I followed his material, and I actually did a lot of what he suggested, and I purchased new springs. Some of those I had to go back to Browning for because there was no other source. But I purchased another company's aftermarket springs, and I put them in my handgun, and everything worked, and it worked. In a way, this was another moment that made this kind of an imprint, and I'll never forget it, because the first time I went out and I thought, well, I need to test fire this thing now. I've got new springs in it. I've figured out how to do this, and I go out and I shoot, and the accuracy is incredible, night and day different than what I had been experiencing for the several previous years. And now this thing is an absolute tack driver again. I mean, I am shooting things, in groups, and trick shots on, targets that go like this and everything. And it was just quite a moment. And so when my partner, Slav Baruchiev, and I met and we started BH Spring Solutions, I had this experience as a reference point. And something I could not forget, and that was, first of all, it was a pain in the butt learning all the different springs that you have to get and buy. And then it was another pain in the butt because I had to go to multiple different sources for these springs. And then it was another pain in the butt because I had to find the tools and I had to find, all of the things that I needed in order to do the job. And then I had to learn how to take the thing apart. And, I found, enough information. One thing I came across on the internet was a field service manual from Browning to their service centers for the exact detail strip takedown and how they suggested it for their technicians in their service centers. This is taking you back when there was a lot more Browning authorized dealers network in the United States at that time. So this is what happened, and when my partner Slav and I got together, this is one of the things that I related to him, was that changing out springs and having fresh springs in these handguns is invaluable. It just brings an old handgun that has a decent round count through it like mine did back up to, in my case, I considered it as good as new, if not better than new. And when my partner Slav and I started BH Spring Solutions, one of the first things that we did, by this time, between my partner and I, we had a good representation of all the high powers that had ever been made. The Arcuses and the Carines and the Brownings and the FNs and the FMs. And so we had, by this time, between the two of us, we had a very decent high power collection. And on the subject of springs, we started comparing the springs in the different high powers and clones and the Inglis and the Mauser and FEGs and all the different ones over the years we've serviced, and we compared what had these different manufacturers done. Had they done anything different in terms of springs? Because by this point, there was no doubt in my mind that what springs you had in your high power had a tremendous impact on the performance, the reliability, the function, the accuracy. And so we wanted to know, did different manufacturers do different things with respect to springs, their strength, their relaxed dimensional length, the number of coils, the dimension, the diameter of the spring wire, all of this. And then we wanted to find out when these are compressed, what's the compression rate as far as how much resistance or push is being offered when the spring is a certain dimension. And there are spring cycling machines that will measure that at like every 1/10 of a millimeter and give it to you on a graph and a printout and the whole bit. But so we started studying these different springs, and one of the things that we did is we started installing the different springs in different models, as if, okay, we found the magazine release spring that works the best out of 5 different manufacturer springs or whatever. And so we install this one in a high power, and then we did the same thing with each one of the springs in the handgun. And what we figured out was we had found combinations of springs that work exceptionally well and enhance accuracy exceptionally well. And so this is the reason why we're even talking about, we're talking about barrels in this session, and we're getting to that. But with respect to accuracy in the high power, the barrel is not the first place, and it might even be the last place you should look for better accuracy in a high power design. And in the last 6 years, I'm estimating, and I think this could be a conservative estimate, that my partner Slav and I have fired 40,000 rounds out of high power pistols. I think that a much closer estimate, and it's only because I don't have, as I'm making this session, I don't have any accurate numbers from Slav as far as how many rounds over the last 6 years he has fired. I know multiple times when I've been in Bulgaria, he and I have bought 200, 300, 400 rounds of ammunition at the shooting range, testing things, and so my inclination is we're much closer cumulatively to 50,000 rounds probably. My own personal high power has seen 18,000 rounds out of it in the last 6 years. We have done another 8,600 out of the Tissos pistol. We did into the thousands out of our barrels when we tested the first sample prototypes. So this adds up very, very quickly. And then our service center has had hundreds and hundreds of high powers through it. All of those high powers get tested as far as live ammunition, usually a couple of magazines, so 25 to 30 rounds out of every high power pistol that we've serviced. So when I add all of those things together, I think it's no exaggeration that we're 40 to 50,000 rounds fired in the last 6 years out of high power pistols, and it very well may be more than 50,000. When you fire that many rounds out of anything, out of a handgun design, you learn things that you can't learn other ways, or any other way, I think, because some of the things that we've learned in the course of that, I don't have any idea how we would have learned otherwise these things. And especially about this accuracy component. Over the last 6 years, everything that we have done, including our spring kits, the SFS system, which we reoriented and redesigned both for the high power and the 1911, all of that involved live fire testing. We came up with tools that now are some of our best-selling products for working on the high power pistol. During this last 6 years, we designed the final spring design in the tactical safety system for Glock pistols, another RDIH product. Our best-selling product today, our buffering guide rod system for the high-power pistol, happened. All of these things involved live shooting and live shooting testing. And because of the structure of our company and our focuses, we think it's possible. We have fired more ammunition out of high powers in the last 6 years than maybe anybody else has. In any event, in so doing, we have accumulated a lot of knowledge, and we've accumulated a lot of information that now we can impart this way to high power owners. And you don't have to go out and shoot 50,000 rounds of ammunition to learn these things. But if you did shoot 50,000 rounds of ammunition, you would have a storybook to tell. Kind of like High Power University, I think. So next time we're going to get into the meat of the high power barrel, and we're going to dissect this thing and share with you some things that I don't think a lot of people have heard before. And again, some of these things are going to be a little controversial, but hopefully we present this all in context, and so that it can be appreciated for being objective, I hope. So anyway, till next time, Mark Allen, BH Spring Solutions LLC and BHSpringSolutions.com.